You're listening to Popcorn and Politics. What's the real deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Asking the hard-hitting questions you want answers to. From political leaders and political hopefuls from around the world.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. It is lovely here in Gwinnett County. Beautiful Sunday. It's like 70-something degrees, so I'm excited about that. Welcome to another episode of Popcorn and Politics. I'm your host, Audrey Bell Kearney, and I'm normally joined by my co-host, Derek J. Wilson, but he's running behind time, so you got me for a little while. We also have a great guest today, Karen Scott Greene. She's going to be coming to us to talk about her run for Superior Court judge, and so we're excited to have her as well. But while we wait for them to get on, let's talk about some news. So Senator Warnock tested positive for COVID-19. Let me tell y'all something. COVID-19 is still out there, and I know a lot of people don't want to, they don't want us to believe it, but it really is. But anyway, he learned that he tested positive for the coronavirus shortly after his historic confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown. So let's give her, Ketanji Brown Jackson, let's give her a round of applause, y'all. Let me tell y'all something. They grilled her, they put her through the ringer. I heard somebody say, "Oh, she's a good human." And I'm saying to myself, really, a good human? You got to be kidding me, right? They say the stupidest stuff as if, okay, so what else would she be? Like, you had to say she's a good human. I thought that was the dumbest thing ever. But anyway, we're wishing Senator Warnock a full and speedy recovery. COVID is still out there, different variants, all kinds of things going on, just a whole lot of everything going on. But anyway, man, we're so proud of Supreme Court Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, because she would be the first ever African American to sit on the Supreme Court in the history of the Supreme Court. African American woman in the history of the Supreme Court. Not just it has taken so long for us to reach some of these pinnacles, and it's amazing and it's an honor, and I'm glad that she made it. But I got to tell you, they didn't want her to make it, and it's always politics, y'all. It's the craziest thing, and I'm looking at that like, man, like, but you'll put some. I ain't gonna even get onto it. I'm not gonna even get onto a rant about some of the folks you got on the Supreme Court and how they got there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Think about when we were going through this whole thing with the other person they was trying to confirm, who had like a record of raping somebody, but yet and still it was okay. Yet somebody want to call her a good human. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, a good human, though, for real. And so it's crazy. Like, politics baffles me, because I'm always trying to figure out, how people think about things. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do they think about the things they think about, and why they do the things they do? And if it doesn't help me and my family and my friends and my community, they're not that interested in it. But it's politics nonetheless. Yeah. Speaking of politics, Derek hates it when I talk about Herschel Walker, but Herschel Walker is always doing something that makes me want to talk about him. Yes, he is running for a Republican seat, but he just always does something that makes me have to talk about him. And he's like, why we always got to talk about Herschel? Because Herschel's always doing something, Derek. And so for those of you who don't know, Herschel is running again against Raphael Warnock for that seat, for the Senate seat. And he's always doing stuff. He's always anyway. There was a debate recently, and former football great Herschel Walker skipped the first major Republican U.S. debate. He skipped this debate, but his absence at the event in Gainesville on Saturday helped shape the back and forth among the 5 candidates who did show up. So, of course, they were saying why he should not be the Republican frontrunner for the seat against Senator Warnock, but Herschel don't be care. Herschel got his own agenda, and it's hilarious because, and I know Derek be so upset when I be talking about this stuff, but I'll be cracking up because he just always does something or say something, or we find out something that is just nuts. So anyway, he didn't show up for his debate. He's like, I ain't coming, y'all handle it. I guess he feel like he don't have to show up for the debate because he's the front runner. So maybe, hey, you never know on that side. So let the 5 of them fight it out while we support Raphael Warnock in his race and helping him to get better and get well, right? Because he got a lot of work to do ahead of him. He has a lot of work ahead of him, so we want to make sure he's in optimal health so he can go ahead and win the seat again. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with the show. I want to welcome a young lady that I met recently. I liked her energy. and we had a chance to talk. We were standing outside in the sunshine at a ribbon cutting, and we had an opportunity to talk. And I loved her energy. I loved her passion about helping others. I loved her forward thinking about things. So I'm excited to have her on the show. So without further ado, Karen Scott Greene, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. How you doing this morning? This
Thank you.
afternoon.
It's afternoon. It is afternoon, but it's a beautiful day here in Georgia. Were you out there in the sunshine? Because it was lovely. I was like, I got to get out.
I just came in from church. I was visiting at Hopewell Missionary Baptist this morning in Norcross.
All right.
And
praise
yeah,
up.
it started out a little cool, but it's really pretty now.
Right.
Yes,
So,
I'm ready.
Karen, I know that you're an attorney. I know that you are running for Superior Court judge here in Gwinnett County, and so give everybody a little bit of background about who you are, and then I got some tough questions for you because I've talked to many, and you've been one of them, and I want people to understand what this position means and why you want them to vote for you. But first, give them some background on who you are and where you come from.
Okay, so where I come from is I'm originally from South Florida, in Hollywood, which is Broward County, Florida. I was born and raised. And my mom was a beautician. She owned a beauty salon. My dad was a firefighter. He was one of the first Black professional firefighters there in Broward County. And he went on to retire as a captain. He was one of the first captains there in the county. So, and I was raised by a village. I talk about that all the time. We had one of those communities that everyone knew everyone, and everyone was subject to be able to discipline you as well. So there was a lot of coverage. We were covered as children. And I went to undergrad and law school there in South Florida at St. Thomas University. Came up here, I took the Georgia bar, and then I went to Georgia Tech, did a master's in city planning after I had taken the bar, and because I wanted to do real estate development. And so worked for a few years at Clark Atlanta University, at the Southern Center for Studies in Public Policy. And I worked at the DeKalb County Law Department, where my client was land development, the planning department, public works. So those were my clients. And then I struck it out on my own as a solo practitioner. I did real estate, bankruptcy, land use, also some criminals, some juvenile law, and did that for a little bit. And that was a good portion of my practice. And in the last few years, I've focused my practice on special education and also juvenile and dependency law. And I got into special education because I have a child who learns differently. And so I had to become his advocate. And I also used it in my juvenile practice law because a lot of my clients, my youthful clients, also have learning disabilities, and I would go to their disciplinary hearings at school, and I would also attend their IEP meetings to advocate for them. And so that became part of my practice. And so I have a passion for young people. And one of the reasons why I'm running is because I started seeing some of my young clients moving over into the adult system, and they moved over to the adult system. There wasn't the same type of support for them. And and what I've been talking about this last year is how that adult system is not meant for young offenders. And for cases that can go back. Go ahead.
I just wanted, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what I heard you say was you advocate, you have a child with special learning disabilities or learning disabilities, or he learns differently. And I want to ask you, what do you think that, because I'm thinking about it as you were saying, I'm like, oh, wow. Because of the way certain children learn and it's not addressed early on, do you think that could be the cause a lot of times for the trouble that they may get in as young adults coming up? Because when you said that, it just kind of clicked in my head like, oh, wait a minute. Could that be one of the reasons? Because they learn differently than people label them. My brother is a special education professional. He has a master's in special education. He teaches right here in Gwinnett County. And I remember talking to him. We were born in Georgia, but we were raised in Jersey. So I remember talking to him one time, and he had a special education class. And he said to me, he said, I got this one little kid. He said, if I don't have him in front of a computer, taking the computer apart, he is a horror. But when I have him in front of a computer, taking it all apart and putting it back together, he's the best kid ever. And I thought that was pretty interesting, right? So as I listen to you talk, being in law in law, and you see how some people come up through the ranks, do you think that could possibly have the way children learn, that could possibly have could possibly a reason for them to get into some of the troubles that they may get in?
It does. There is we've seen a correlation between children who learn differently and behavioral issues. And sometimes they're acting out because they're in classrooms, they don't understand what's going on. You think like of a child who has dyslexia, for instance. They're seeing numbers and words that look like gibberish to them. And so they start acting out because they don't understand. And sometimes kids don't have the language to say, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to me. And so they act out. And it's the really in-tuned educator who can identify something's going on here. Let's get parents in so that we can see what's going on. Let's get this child evaluated, because the parents have to be the ones who sign off on getting the child evaluated. But there's definitely a correlation between children who learn differently, have learning challenges, and behavioral issues. And oftentimes it's because those the learning challenges are not identified and interventions are not put in place early on. So you've got a child who gets into 6th and 7th grade where the math is now harder, the reading comprehension is harder because they didn't have the fundamentals in elementary school. And now they're no longer interested in being in school. And they start skipping, they start fighting, they're acting out, we'll just say acting out, and becoming what's labeled as behavioral problems, when really a lot of it is how they learn and how they, and it's up to their village to kind of figure out, what do we need to put in place to help this child? What supports does this, and not only the child, but the family? Because when my son was diagnosed with autism in 2nd grade, I had to learn, and we had to get fortified on what he needed in order to be successful. So yeah, there's definitely a correlation between students who haven't been identified as having learning challenges and then having behavioral issues.
Wow.
Yeah, there definitely is. And so that's
I know one of the things
that's part of that school to prison pipeline.
Yes, and that's what I was about to get into, because I know you're passionate about that, and I wanted to talk about that because I've heard that said plenty of times. You need to change the prison to school pipeline, and so I think that's a good beginning. But what happens when you don't have that teacher, the educator who can identify that, and that kid gets caught up in that pipeline? And then a lot of times I feel like it's kind of hard for them to turn around once they get in the pipeline. What's your thoughts on that?
So now I'm not an education specialist, so this is all from what I've seen with working with young people and what I hear from educators. So there has to be someone in that child's life who can identify that child, at least at the beginning portion, needs an evaluation to determine what's going on educationally. It could be educational, it could be some behavioral issues. And when I say behavioral, it could be ADHD or something on that vein, or somewhere on the autism spectrum, or it could be dyslexia, something about how that child learns. But there has to be an adult involved in that child's educational process, either a parent, a concerned, someone who's like kin, who can identify and say, something's going on here, let's get an evaluation. And if it's not a teacher, then hopefully it's a grandparent. Hopefully it's someone who works within the educational system at some point that can start that process. Talk to the parent, because oftentimes parents don't know. Like, these kids don't come with instructions. We have to figure it out. Like, I had to get in there and figure out, what did my son need? What was my responsibility to give him the tools that he needed? But someone has to be in that circle.
Cool. I know that you're running for Superior Court judge, and there are a lot of people.
Once you can, Let me for a second. Okay. Once the identification is made, that's just the first part of the puzzle, right? Because like with my son, he's now 17 and we're looking at college. He's 18, I'm sorry. We're looking at colleges. He's graduating this May. See that big grin on my face? Because we did occupational therapy, we did speech therapy. He worked with his counselor for several years. Behavior on behaviors. And then he got to the point where she was just his therapist and he would talk to her about, teenage things. And now she's like, you just call me when you need to talk. But that was from second grade up through high school. So it was a lot of, it was a lot of work, and he put in the work. We were just doing the driving. He put in the work. So I give that all to him, but we were committed of giving him the tools and the resources that he needed.
Cool. I know that what you're doing is so important, and I know that the position that you're running for is so important. For those who are maybe watching it and don't know what a superior court judge does, you want to give them a little background about what that is and why you feel like you would be a good candidate for this position.
Okay, so in the superior court, they hear civil and criminal cases. So in the criminal cases, superior court judges hear felonies. So that would be anything punishable by more than a year in jail. That goes to the superior court. Anything less than that is considered a misdemeanor and goes to state court. And on the civil side, your superior court judges exclusively hear family law. So you wouldn't hear family law. A state court judge would not hear a family law issue unless it was maybe for domestic violence or something of that nature. Your superior court judges also hear constitutional questions. So if somebody had a question about the state constitution, that would go to a superior court judge to answer that question. If you wanted anything dealing with real estate, has to go before the superior court, with the exception of evictions. So if you have a dispute with your neighbor about your boundary lines, or they put something on your property, and that goes to superior court. If you want to stop someone from doing something, getting an injunction, that goes to superior court. And some personal injury, contract disputes, that can go to superior court too. But a lot of attorneys decide to take those to state court because they might be able to get it in court quicker and get it resolved quicker than going to superior court.
I know one of the things you talked about. Okay, thank you. I know you always, when I was reading your bio, one of the things you said is fairness. Now, I guarantee you that every candidate we've talked to and will talk to, they're going to say the same thing. We advocate for fairness. So that being said, what's going to make you different in that position? Because I think we talked to 2 or 3 candidates not running for your particular seat. Mm-hmm. I don't think, maybe, but everybody says fairness. Everybody, it's the same thing. Why you, Karen?
Because I believe I'm uniquely qualified for this position. I've worked as a mediator, arbitrator. I've also done civil, I've done criminal. And so I have a wealth of experience, but not only that, I listen. Mm-hmm. And so there are a lot of people who come into the courtroom who don't feel like they've been heard, and their story never got to be told, or they were cut off. Folks come into the courtroom often and leave out feeling like, I never got a chance to really say what I wanted to say. I never got a chance to, the judge cut me off. I never got a chance to tell my side of the case. And that won't be in my courtroom. All voices will be heard. And I do know that even with the great judges that we have in Gwinnett, I've heard that about some of the judges that currently sit, that folks felt like they weren't heard, or that the judge really didn't understand them.
Okay. What's funny? I gotta say this quick story. So my mom used to love Judge Judy. I'm talking about love. She used to love watching Judge Judy. And I was like, she's so rude and she never listens. That's what I saw. And because she would always cut the people off. But I thought maybe it was just for TV. I didn't think that that was happening in real life. I thought she was being so rude and just cutting people off for TV purposes. But you're saying that this happens real life.
Some judges are like that. Not all, not most, but some are.
Mm-hmm.
Some are. And some don't. Some seem very impatient, particularly with
Mm-hmm.
litigants who don't have attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that has to be the worst feeling. To come into a courtroom, folks are already afraid to come into the courtroom anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then you come to the courtroom and the judge is verbally dressing you down because you didn't understand something. And, that's not a good feeling to leave citizens with. And particularly citizens who have elected you. And so not that you're playing into the crowd as the judge, but you do have to have compassion, and you do need to listen to folks and hear their story and fully weigh what they're telling you before you make their decision. I'm not saying that I'm going to, just because you tell me your story, I'm going to rule in your favor, but I will hear you out. And there have been people who have told me that they've gone into court and they don't feel like they've been heard out. And that won't be my courtroom.
I had the opportunity to work with a top law enforcement, officer. And the one thing that she was big on was respect for all, fairness for all. And I don't care what crime you did, she was extremely big on respect, even though you were the criminal. And you had a case that was stacked against you. She was like, they're still human and they still deserve respect. So I think a lot of times, like you said, people come before a judge and they're like, they want to just poop their pants because it's like, oh my God, they're going to judge me. I don't have an attorney. I'm representing myself. I don't know all the terminology. Heck, I do this show. And a lot of times I'm asking Derek, what is that? What does that mean? Because I don't, he's a politician. I'm not. And so to be able to sit in front of somebody and feel like what I have to say matters is a big thing for a lot of people. So I think that's a great thing.
Think about the layout of the courtroom, right? You walk into the courtroom, the judge is seated probably about 6 feet or so higher than everyone else when you walk into the courtroom. So already you walk into the courtroom and so you as a person who may be coming in without counsel, that's a very intimidating picture when you walk into the courtroom. And so if you couple that with this person who's looked like they're lording over you, they're short with you, they don't have the patience, and they're not hearing you out and they're rushing you along. How does that make someone feel?
Yeah.
You definitely don't feel empowered.
Right.
Yeah. And I just want folks to know that when they come into my courtroom that they will be heard.
Right. What are some of the things that you can talk about when it comes to the school to work pipeline to school to work, school to pipeline to prison? Because I know that's a huge thing too. Like I've talked to plenty of law enforcement officers, and that's a big thing, but not just for you guys, but for the community as a whole. We want to stop that pipeline. We want to cut that pipeline off. And so for people that are looking right now, and you're on all these platforms right now, we on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Roku, as well as American One Radio. How can we stop that pipeline? What do we need to do? How can we help you and support you so we can stop the pipeline? And so we need to create a new pipeline. Instead of from school to prison, we need from school to community, from school to business owner, from school to careers. How do we stop that?
And so there's some fundamental things that we can do. So there are organizations right now like Gwinnett Stop that are currently working on policy. And so they advocate at the local level, they advocate at the state level on changing some discipline. I'm going to say school prison, who are being pushed out of school because they're getting in trouble in school. And what we're seeing is that children who have IEPs, children who have some sort of disciplinary issue, that they are being pushed out of school. So when kids are being pushed out of school, they then are more likely to get involved in crime. So the more you suspend a child, the more likely they are to just at some point just stop coming to school. So they drop out, they get involved with crime, and then that's the school to prison pipeline. And that school to prison pipeline also is part of when a child gets in trouble in school. Things that used to be handled at the school level are now being pushed to juvenile court. So now this child has a juvenile court record because of something that happened in school. Back in the day, kids got in a fight at school, that was handled at the school level. It wasn't sent over to juvenile court. Those sort of things should be dealt with at the school level. So you and I, as just Joe citizens, let's get involved in our local schools. When schools need mentors, our school here at Shiloh has this thing, has a program for dads where they have the dads come into the schools and walk the halls. My husband has done it. And so they're looking for kids who may be not where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be in class. And so they're directing kids back to class. They're looking just to make sure that, no shenanigans are going on. So you can get involved at local school. Anybody who has time, so retirees or anyone who works the night shift, because we forget about those workers. Get involved in your local school. And if you don't have time during the week, get involved in a mentor program that might meet on the weekend, but get involved in some young person's life. So the more people that are involved in a child's village, the more likely they are to be engaged. And I know that there are some folks who say, well, they're not my kids, that's not my problem. But 10 years, 20 years from now, that same young person is going to be an adult. Wouldn't you rather pour the resources, the human resources, not just the money, but put the human resources in when they're young and doing the fundamental things like being involved in their life, being involved in after school programs, ball programs, tutoring programs, your local library, just about every library system has a tutoring program, volunteer. And it doesn't have to be every day, but go once a week, be consistent in someone's life. So those are some of the fundamental things that we can do. And on a program level, we can advocate to our school boards about changing policy about how they discipline. Look at, and then, you can look at, all of this is open records. Look at the disciplinary rates in our schools. Look at the percentage, what's the percentage of white, Black, minority students, and then how are they disciplined? Are they disciplined disproportionately? Are you seeing Black and brown children being disproportionately impacted by disciplinary rules? And if that's the case, on a local level, start advocating at your school board for changing those policies. And instead of referring things out to juvenile court, let's deal with it at the school level, and instead of sending kids over to alternative school, let's figure out ways that we can keep them in the normal school setting, because this zero tolerance policy has pushed a lot of kids out of school.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes it could be a child who hasn't had any other disciplinary infractions. They get into one thing, and that could be the defining moment for them being pushed out of school. So let's as a community, look at school policies. And if you can't do it on your own, partner with an organization that does. Here in Gwinnett Stop does that. It's Gwinnett STOPP. They're doing a lot of work on Marlene Tillman. I just said her name wrong. She's gonna kill me. But Marlene Tillman, who is the executive director at Gwinnett Stop, is very active on the state, local, our babies.
You know,
So
so
there
crazy.
are resources. So you're not reinventing the wheel.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know that if a kid had a fight in school, it got sent to juvenile court because, like you said, back in the day, you have a fight, you have a fight. Call the parents in. The kid had a fight. You may get suspended depending on who started the fight or expelled it, but not court. So that's crazy.
Yeah,
And you know,
some schools do send them out to juvenile court.
wow,
Yeah.
wow. Ooh, okay.
And then the child's on, you know, and if the child is adjudicated as having committed that act, then they're placed on probation and have some, you know, they have some services that they have to complete before that's finished. And it's a fight. The same thing that would have gotten us, you know, well, I was about to say 30 years, but it's more than 30 years for me. That would have gotten us detention or a few days of in-house suspension.
Right.
You know.
Wow.
So yeah.
So if a kid has been sent to juvenile because they had a fight, does that record follow them the rest of their lives? Does it drop off at some point? How does that work?
So with juvenile records, they're no one's supposed to have access to them unless you're going to the military. However, if you commit some heinous crime, they can look at your juvenile record and then bring that into, you know, look at that as far as what you've committed before. But if you're going off to college and unless you've done something where you have like seriously hurt someone, most colleges aren't looking for those records.
So that's good to know. You got some contenders, and
I have one contender. I'm running against one incumbent.
Okay, you're running against an incumbent who's been there. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Have they done something that you feel you can do better? Have they not done something that you could feel that you can do better? That's why you're running.
No, I'm running because I think I'm a good candidate. I'm not running against my opponent. I'm running because I think I'm a good candidate and I think I would make a good judge. Yeah. And my opponent's been on the bench for 22, 23 years. He's never had a contested race. He was appointed to the state court, appointed to the superior court. And, you know, he's a fine jurist. I just think I would make a great judge as well.
Okay. All right. And speaking of that, great judges, Supreme Court judge confirmation this week, history making. Yes. I know we were all excited and happy about that, even though I was talking about this before you came on. Someone said she was a good human. I was like, oh, you know, I was like, anyway.
And yes, she is. So the answer to that is yes, she is. Yeah. And she's also a phenomenal woman who happens to be Black American, with Black American parents. And we're extremely proud of that. That's like every American should be proud of that. Black, white, brown, whatever. She's eminently qualified like that. And it's sad that I even had to put that on there, but she is. Right. She's eminently qualified. And there'd been no issues when she had been confirmed before for getting on the federal circuit. So, you know, I was very happy. I'm very pleased. Representation matters. And so for little girl look like you and I to see her on the Supreme Court, that is powerful. The imagery of that is powerful. So yeah, she is a wonderful human. And she also is a Black woman with Black parents who grew up in the Black South. And she's from South Florida, like me. So I identified with her, you know, because I'm from South Florida.
She's frozen. Her computer. You got
They
froze for a
came through.
second.
My dad was able to see. Oh yeah. So, but my parents also came through Jim Crow. You know, they both are from North Florida. My mom's from Central Florida. And the stories that they told me about growing up, I'm sure Miss Brown's parents told her some of the same stories. You know, my mom moving down to Miami to go to beauty school, and this was in 1958. And she was going to beauty school, and the way she was able to get down to Miami was working what they call on premises. She worked as a maid in someone's house while she was going to beauty school, and she also worked at a cafe. And she would work over on Miami Beach, and they would have to be off Miami Beach before sundown. Or they had to have a pass to be on Miami Beach. And so you think about Miami Beach now, where people go and they party. But 1957, Black folks had to have passes to work on Miami Beach. You better be on that bus, on that last bus, going back from Miami to Overtown, because that's where most of the Black people in Miami lived back in the day. You better be on that bus getting back over to Overtown, or you would be arrested. Or the folks that you worked for would need to vouch for the fact that you were there late. So I mean, that's real. And that was within my parents' lifetime, you know?
Yeah.
Neither one of my grandfathers lived to vote. You know, they both died in the 50s. And living in Florida, they never had an opportunity to vote because the counties that they live in would not allow them to register. And they both owned land. They were landowners, owned farms, were self-sufficient, and couldn't vote. And so Miss Ketanji Brown, just Ketanji Brown Jackson, comes from that heritage too, and now she's sitting on the Supreme Court. So I'm ecstatic about her appointment.
I'm sure that both your grandfathers.
Evolution.
I'm sure that both of your grandfathers right now, they didn't have the opportunity to vote, but they have you. And I'm sure they will be so proud of what you have accomplished. And now you're going on to hopefully be a Superior Court judge here in Gwinnett County. Who knows? One day we may be saying, she was on my show when she was at the Supreme Court. You know, that'd be me acting a fool on the show, because I'll probably still be doing this in 40, 50 years from now, all old and everything. But listen, I want to tell people how to reach out to you if they want to support your campaign, support your message, and help you get out there and win this thing. How can they reach out to you?
They can go to my website, votekgreene.org. That's VOTEKGREENE.org. They can sign up to volunteer. They can contribute. Donations are always welcome. They can also follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at vote4 K Greene. So that's where they can hit me up. Hit me up if you want a yard sign. If you're living in Gwinnett, want a yard sign, we'll get a yard sign out to you. If you want to do canvassing, because we need to do canvassing and get the word out to folks that this campaign and the election is on May 24th. Early voting starts on May 2nd. So if you do not vote on May 24th, you will not have a say in who your next Superior Court judges are. So there are 5 judges that are up for re-election on this ballot. 2 of them have no opposition, so they will be up
Re-elected.
for 4 more years. They will be reelected, and then 3 of them have opposition. So find out about who the opposition is. Find out who the candidates are. I'm one of the attorneys that's running against an incumbent judge, but there are 3 judges that have contested races. And I believe you've profiled maybe 1 or 2 of those races so far.
I think so, and I think I got another one next week. So it's a judges month. It's a judges month. So
yeah.
I think Derek told me we have a sitting judge next week who's running for re-election. So that will be our guest for next week. I won't say confirm. I won't confirm it because I can't remember because we have so many people coming on. But I think we have one coming on next week. But thank you so much for being my guest. I wish you all the luck in your election. I know that the work you do is important.
Thank you.
I love it when people get a chance to understand how our judicial system works and what role you play. Because I think a lot of times we're so confused. Like, we just know that that's a judge, that's an officer, that's a DA, and if we really don't know the roles, it stops people from even stepping forward to do what they need to do. So thank you for the work you're doing, and I wish you all the luck in the election, and hopefully I'll see you after the fact.
Yes, I will definitely come back. I will definitely come back if you have me.
I surely will. So thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, listen, guys, that's all I got for you this week. I'll be back again next Sunday. Derek is off busy. He's probably out working with some of his clients because he does a lot of work. He's one of the hardest working men inside of Gwinnett County, especially when it comes to politics. Like, when it comes to politics, he worked way harder than I do. I'm still learning this whole thing. But anyway, Karen Scott Greene, if you like what she had to say, she's well-rounded. She's been she's been in the law enforcement industry for a while. She has a great background in history and skills. So, you want a person to know how to do real estate law. You want a person to know how to handle your kids when they come before them in the courtroom. You want a person who's going to listen. I've been in a courtroom before. I was there a while ago with my daughter, and you want a judge. I had to go with my niece who got a speeding ticket, and the judge was great. Now he was a really cool judge. I ain't gonna even lie. And because some of them people, I would have slapped. He slapped them on the hand for some of the things they were doing. They were speeding. Some were speeding under the influence. He still slapped them on the hand. You know what I mean? But you have great judges, and so and you have some judges not so good. So anyway, cast your vote. I'll be back again next Sunday, y'all, 10 a.m., 1 o'clock. See, listen, I'm thinking about Good Morning Gwinnett. Y'all know I'll be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. on the Good Morning Gwinnett show. So I'm thinking 10 a.m. live, but no, I'll be back next Sunday, 1 p.m., same bat time, same bat place. So make sure that you tune in for another great interview. And make sure that you support the candidates that you feel that you want to support. We always list their email, their websites on our site here. So you can copy that down. Go follow them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and wherever you do social media. Follow them and see what they're doing, and support them. Because like she said, and like all of them have said, they cannot run campaigns on air. They need funding. So support all the candidates that you feel that you want to support. Support them in any way you can. All right. So listen, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. It's a beautiful day here in Georgia. I'm about to go outside and get into the sunshine. I'll be back again next week. And until next time, my friends, make it a great day. Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Popcorn in Politics. What's the Real Deal? Hosted by Audrey Bell Kearney and Derek J. Wilson. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your family and friends. To support the show, visit us on the web at www.popcorninpolitics.com. Connect with us on Facebook at Progressive Popcorn and on Instagram at Popcorn Politics Podcast.